and welcome to our second Kite Perspective of 2022. Today I'm really happy to introduce two guest speakers from Kite's latest partner, MobileWalla. I'd like to introduce Ashu Nand and Shamita Chaudhry. Ash and Shamita, would you like to just take a second to introduce yourselves and let us know a little bit about you?
Sure. So, hi everyone. Nice to meet you, albeit virtually. My name is Ashu Nand. I am your local face for Australia, New Zealand for MobileWalla, and helping grow based on demand in this market. So I hope you'll find the insights we share practical and get value out of this session. Thank you. Shomita?
Hi everyone, my name is Shomita. I handle the Asia Pacific region for MobileWalla. I'm based out of Singapore, and yet really hoping this session is helpful and we all learn from each other. Thank you.
Thank you. So what's the session about? So in 2007, Steve Jobs climbed onto a stage and announced to the world that Apple was releasing three devices. One was a music device, a new style of music device. One was an internet access device, and one would be a mobile phone. The kicker, of course, of all Apple is the and something more. In this case, it was all those three devices were actually a single device, which was being launched as the iPhone. Since smartphones have effectively been launched in 2007, they have become pretty much ubiquitous in society. From children to the elderly, every walk of life, people are focused on a mobile device. It has become the center of people's interactions with the outside world. And what that interaction and that activity on mobile phones is really providing for organizations is data feedback on what people are interested in, what are they looking at, what are they reviewing. And a lot of organizations, of course, started collecting data from their apps. They collect, what products people may be interested in, what interactions are they having with an organization's individual app, which gives some good insight into how a person is engaged with your brand, or how they're actually, what they're looking at, which you can focus on, take that data and understand a little bit about the person. But the reality is, these devices are a barometer to us as a human being. It's not just the one app that I interact with a brand which provides data. Ultimately, there are hundreds of apps on my device, hundreds of apps on other people's device, some of which we use short term, some of which we'll use long term. But getting an understanding on how people are actually interacting with their device rather than with a specific organizational app is really the holy grail. It gives a much deeper insight into who I am, what I'm interested in as a person. And that's really where MobileWalla can take the stage. And this is a situation that they want to address. MobileWalla want to help us augment with third-party data the mobile experience. Now, I'd just like to hand over to Ashu. If you could take us through the platform, how does it work? What data is collected? And fundamentally, how does the platform analyze this?
Thank you, Pete. So let me just share my screen, and you can just bring that up for me. Okay.
Yeah. So it's coming.
Yeah, excellent. So I'll start off with perhaps setting some giving a frame of reference, right? So I have two boys, and I make sure that they understand this concept when they wake up, right? Before they start getting each other, as teenagers do. So, we all wake up at work with a purpose. We have a goal and a target. So the topic today is around how to use third-party data to better augment your targeting for targeting purposes, right? So in this era where we are seeing businesses trying to struggle themselves out of the COVID wave into whatever you might want to call it, new next normal and things of that sort. Ultimately, you can only do cost cutting to a certain extent around, optimizing your processes. The ultimate barometer of truth is when you have customers, consumers who buy your product, and to do that, you basically need to have a goal to understand and build trust, because trust is the ultimate human emotion, right? And so to build that trust with your target audience, it comes down to how do you better understand who they are, your end consumers. And in the corporate landscape, what you run into is you have your first-party data, which is derived from based on interactions with your known set of customers, versus some second-party data augmentation like fly-by points, right? Narrow, it tells you the category, it tells you the gender, and then it doesn't give you insight, for example. But then we have third-party operations where it's data collected by the likes of MobileWalla, and it gives you the most broadest, deepest view of helping form or paint the better portrait of the customer. So better targeting, okay, is the art of using data to basically personalize and predict. Those are the two key things that MobileWalla, from a business standpoint, helps marketing teams with, okay? And then changing gears and talking a little bit about the MobileWalla, who we are, okay? So we all know that there's a lot more mobile devices, and as Pete, you mentioned, we are essentially glued to it, right? It doesn't part our ways even when we take a nature break. So the premise is that people are fixated and using phones to impact their lives. They basically have a device ID. Every phone has a device ID that's unique. It's known as MAID, or mobile advertising ID. So that's our primary key. And using that, we are able to basically help you on your journey around from personalizing to predicting, with the first baseline, which is enrichment, right? So as you can see in this slide here, we are very able to tell you things around system data, usage data. We track also 75,000 different apps, demographic things like age, gender, behavioral things, are they a gamer, and location latitude to help with footfall visitation analysis, all these things. And for telco specifically, there's a whole bunch of other things around, carrier types, connection types, IP address for future broadband sale. So we basically collect information around the main ID, and then we progress from the data enrichment journey to more on the right-hand side, things that help you predict things. So analytics, right? For example, behavior prediction. So in predictive models that we build internally amongst in companies to better predict the next best move, next best behavior for customers, that costs a lot of money. And the first thing that costs is the ability to understand which features or attributes should be fed into the machine to better drive the desired outcomes and calculations. So that cost. So MobileWalla has those kinds of pre-canned 250 different features that help you with predictive models. The other thing is tying the offline-online behavior, so identity matching. And again, one of the things that get asked is around privacy. So the MAID ID is all we know. We don't know your exact details as an end consumer, but it helps you as an organization to then use that as the basis to go acquisition, competitor target, propensity modeling, things of that sort. So on that note, just very quickly, last couple of slides, we exist in, we have scale of around 40 countries, 2 billion devices, and more pertinent is for the Australian and New Zealand locations, around 22 million here and 4 million in New Zealand. And those are the monthly observations. So a lot of scale, right? So I'll stop right there and pass it over to you, Pete. I hope that answers the question of why we do what we're doing in the marketing world of targeting, and how MobileWalla potentially helps you.
Yeah, giving a real insight into how the platform's put together, and I think how you actually collect the data and the level of services that you provide in supporting of that. I noticed there was a lot of the talk around individuals, segmentation, etc. What kind of segmentation can you do with the data, these MAIDs that you've collected, and how ultimately can I get that into my platform, get my access to that so that I can actually take advantage and do that augmentation of my own first-party data?
Sure. So I'll pass this to Shomita to give us more insights. The question is around how we form the segments and then the input into various systems.
And Shomita, if you need to again share the screen, just let me know and I'll pull up the slides. There is a little bit of a delay at the moment. It's a bit laggy, but hopefully it'll be good.
Yeah, we need to share that screen. And
I'll start and you can put up the slide. So as Asha mentioned, the fundamental or unique identifier is a mobile advertising ID. The value that we have is that, instead of having data collected from one app, our relationships are many. So we work with various apps, different kind of, aggregators, and we collect data from various apps. So if you have 30 different apps on your phone, possibly I have relationships with 15 of them, which gives a sense of diversity and scale, which can bring into the table. Now, coming to the question of what kind of audiences we have. So if I broadly categorize in terms of like logic, etc., it's an app-based categorization, a location level categorization, and third is predictive. Now, app-based is very, very straightforward, right? So if you have a certain app on your phone, it gives me certain indication of your interest. So let's say I see on your phone you have cricket info, so it gives me, it's sort of like, hey, you're possibly interested in cricket. I see an app which is, let's say, pregnancy related app, baby bum. It's you can sort of infer most likely she's pregnant. Nursing apps. So there are a lot of apps that we would have access to, which could give you some sense of who this customer is in terms of behavior, life stages, etc. Mobile data is very rich when it comes to location data, right? So most of our apps give lat-long information, and mobile phones are mobile. You go wherever you go, you take it with them yourself. So essentially, we collect a lot of location data as well, and we use that data to create also our segmentation. So things like, hey, if I've seen you at malls every week once, I would say, hey, you're very likely to be a shopper. Or we see you at Pizza Hut or McD, then very likely you are someone he's interested in that brand. So there are a lot of such segmentation we do, and we do certain predictive segmentation as well. So a prediction could be, hey, who you are. So certain things around age and gender could be predictions, but also predictions of what's your likely activity in future, what you're likely to do, right? So based on certain things that you've done in the past, what are you likely to do in future as well? So there could be certain predictions that we do as well. You could, and using all that logic, we would categorize them further as like a demographic, segmentation, life stages, gamers, a lot of telco level segmentation, retail segmentation. And one more thing is, these are the segmentation that you see here. I know it's very small, maybe, most of you can't see it properly, but they are what we call as a pre-built segmentation. So, these are available today and you want to utilize them, in Australia, you can do today. But we also build custom segmentation. So you could come and say, hey, I want to reach out to working females in Australia, and we should be able to create a segmentation. There's the first part of the question. I hope that answers. I mean, that's possibly helps you.
Yeah, I just, I'm sorry to interrupt. We have a question from the audience. From Fed Testad. Can we use this data at contact level to update a B2B database? And I guess that kind of feeds into the next half of this question, which is how do we actually get that information?
Sure. So, so the data that we have is mobile advertising ID based. We do not have personal IDs. We do not know your name, your phone number, email addresses. So the best way to sort of map if you have your own internal data, would be using mobile advertising ID. If you have an app of your own, we can map it. Actually, it doesn't matter if it is B2C or B2B, as long as you have mobile advertising ID. Or maybe physical addresses, which we can use to basically map it to your addresses with mobile advertising ID, because we have location data. But we won't be able to do it with if you're talking about contact IDs, which are email addresses and phone numbers. But again, I mean, there are companies, it's Australia. There's a limitation in certain markets like US. We do have email to device ID mapping, so we can use those. But unfortunately, in Australia, we can't serve that. And again, Peter, quickly answering the question number 2, which will also actually answer some of the questions. I mean, one of the extension of the question is the data can be transferred through an S3 file or AWS or offline file. We don't do API typically if it's a huge volume. So volume wise, we would say, hey, take this data, put it in your system, and match it with your data. That would be if you're doing data enrichment, or it could be if you're purely doing audience targeting. We also are connected to major DMPs. So if you want to use a public DMP, right, we can actually help you, like Trade Desk, right? So we can push the audience segments to the Trade Desk, and you can start utilizing for targeting. Yeah, over to you. I know we're running a little late on time.
No, it's okay. It's okay. That's good. So I can imagine, just to your integrations point, you mentioned DMP. Given that everything is made based, you can probably feed this information direct into Google, Facebook, anybody who has that mobile, effectively anybody who uses a mobile advertising ID to connect you to devices that are on the connected to the internet. Just a very yeah, you mentioned Ashu Samitha, you mentioned a lot of services MobileWalla actually provide in support of the data. We talked about segmentation, we talked about ingesting that. Could you give me a little more details on the kind of services that MobileWalla as an organization provide in order to support clients across ANZ?
So our services, so broadly, I would say first is, we come as a data provider, but we handhold the customer. So if you want to ingest this data onto your own platform, it could be CDP, it could be own data lake, we would help you in the entire journey so that you are able to utilize that. It's pretty standard process, so it doesn't typically take a lot of work. There is, if the customer wants to get beyond the typical menu, right, which is the segments, and you say, hey, I want to do certain predictive analysis. I have a lot of data of my own. If I layer with your data, can I do something more out of it? We do provide data science services as well. So my team can come in and say, hey, let's work together in a collaborative way where your data, our data could be merged together, and we can together build data models which could be relevant for you. So we do provide on top of the data services in terms of data transfer, DMP. If you want to push it, it's given, there's no part, but there is this other part around data science, predictive models. We definitely help the customer get into that phase, which could be the next level of targeting and understanding their customers.
Cool. And I mean, the obvious question off the back of this is, do you have any examples of any regional kind of customers? You don't have to mention them by name, but any examples where you've provided value to customers? Again, if you want me to share the screen, just let me know.
Yes, please, Pete. Thank you. So while the screen is displaying, just that's an important conversation around Shomita's comments, right? So we are platform agnostic, and the reason for that is because different customers are in different phases of a journey towards this data-driven marketing, right? And they have different systems. Some have DMPs, some have CDPs. So some have BI tools like Tableau that need analysis and analytics of the UX layer. So we support those. Now, very quickly, I'll share a couple of business use cases and the kind of just to give you a flavor of the kind of problems we solve in certain verticals, right? So I'll start with, say, for instance, dining quick service restaurants. We have a global brand, QSR brand, even in the Australian market. It basically uses the highly nuanced data sets that we provide to understand the customer, to augment and paint the picture. They then do things such as understanding who is going down the road to their competitors, and then go into predictive modeling within the bounds of what we can divulge, like around propensity, brand propensity. These are generic use cases, right? So applicable across QSRs, retail aspects as well. So retailers, just on that one, we've got basically enrichment of data, and how do you, a auto or luxury auto goods manufacturer basically wanted to understand who are their high value customers. In the earlier video, we saw, the high value customers tend to spend 3 times as much. So these are important things that we help you with. On the fintech side, we provide intelligence around predictive models for things like credit risk. And again, depending on the geo, there are different things that are highly predictive of, say, things like loan default. In the Asian market, it's the average price of a cell phone in the household, for example. In Australia, it's significantly different. And in the telco side, right? So telcos traditionally have lots of data and volumes of it, are all about what and who they have a contract with. But one of the things that comes to fore here that's important is around being able to understand who else is in the household, right? So the household composition. Why is that important? Because firstly, if your household is uniformly geared towards one provider, say yourselves, then the churn risk is less at contract anniversary dates. But if you have heterogeneous household where there's another telco in the mix with their plan, it's highly likely the user could be motivated to churn. Also, household composition helps you understand things like what else to market, like 5G, broadband, and so forth. And overarching all of this is, we've got lots of points of interest mapped. So it's not just only understanding, retaining your customers and selling more of them, but also getting more customers in the process. So I hope that helps.
Yes, that's really insightful. It's there's obviously there's great advantage from using this service. I'm just conscious of time. I think the one final question. I mean, it's bound to raise its head in any situation where we're collecting data, even if it is anonymous and just the mobile advertising ID. We're doing this and segmenting people. Privacy concerns. I think you mentioned earlier GDPR. I know in America, California are increasing. It's a constant battle. I think anybody working with data has. That how do we keep it secure and ultimately how do we maintain compliancy? I'd just like to ask, what has there been a big effect of the recent restrictions that have come into place, and how do you manage as an organization to ensure you're on top of all compliance?
Sure. Yeah. So as a data company, it's an issue we need to address, right? And there's no running away from it, right? If you're a data company, you need to address privacy issues. And on a funnier note, right, the most been spend on is on lawyers and having a chief privacy officer, but that's a joke. See, we need to be very cautious of the laws of different countries. So we have done a baseline with GDPR, which we believe is the most stringent, and I guess that's the belief of all the lawyers. So we have that as a standard, and we try to ensure that we follow all GDPR laws. And of course, yes, there's the California Act, everything. So there's always ensuring that we follow all country laws wherever we are. But one thing, as you pointed out, right? So good in the kind of data that we have is that we don't have any PII data. So we only get mobile advertising ID based information. We don't store any phone numbers, emails, and even anything which is personalized, it's all hashed. Very, even if we have in some countries, so it's not available. We don't know names, etc. So nothing like that. But still, even then, we need to be very careful of the laws. So say certain things that we do, right? So we collect the data from our partners. We are not a first-party data, so we do have partnerships with publishers or different aggregators. And we ensure that we have checks and balances in place. So we look at their terms with the publishers, how is publisher collecting data and all, and then only we would be actually get into a contract with these partners. So that part is we scrutinize in terms of the data collection part, that these is done in a proper way, in a legal way. The second part is we also ensure that if someone, and it's all consented data, right? So if in future, if you revoke your consent, which is possible on your phone as well, we at our end ensure that all information that we have of that customer is removed, all historical data. Even if you have not, even if you had consented to that data in the past, we remove that. And not only that, whoever is our customer, we would send that information to our customer as well, and we'd say, hey, this person actually doesn't want us to track them anymore. So please ensure that this data is deleted. So we ensure that not only the data collection is with consent, that there is consent in place, but in case, in future we decide to move it, we are very conservative. We remove everything in the past and pass it to our customers as well. And as I said, right, there's always been, we look at all the new laws, changes, every country. I know Australia has been, going through, changes. We know Indonesia, India, every country pretty much. So we do follow all these changes and ensure we are good. But yes, we need to ensure that as a data company, it's absolutely important for us, and we take this very, very seriously.
Yep, and I mean the ability to opt out obviously is kind of universal, but I think the one step above and beyond that you're doing is when somebody does opt out, you're informing the customers that they can no longer use that data, which in many cases an opt out means I will not collect any more information on you from this point forward, but we'll use what we have, and I think your due diligence in informing your customers that that data is no longer available to them is actually really fantastic and very much ahead of its game. That was pretty much my final question. I would like to remind anybody, if you do have questions, please put them in the comments. We have had issues with some comments not necessarily showing, but as you saw earlier, Fred's comment came through. So if people do have any questions in the last couple of minutes, please fire them through. Any final words, Ashu or Shomita?
My thoughts are, as Shomita mentioned, right? Every country will go through privacy reform changes. In the midst, as marketing individuals and data scientists, we need to come and solve a problem. And the problem is, how do you create a trust with your end consumers, right? Brands need to create trust. And to get that trust, it comes down to, you don't want to screw things up by not understanding who your target market is, really personalizing, and then helping delight with the predictive behavior side of things. So those are the kind of problems that they are not insurmountable. Now we are at the point in time where data science in particular, solves those problems. I won't mention things like AI and machine learning. They have their place in time, and they do help, right? We use machine learning more than anything else. But these things help assist you in your journey. So we hope we've added some value, given you some insights. Happy to share anything else that you may have post this call, and thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate your attention and your 30 minutes.
Thank you very much for joining. Thank you. It's been really insightful, as Anita has written. It's been very, very insightful, and you've provided options and choice across the use of third-party mobile data. Just as one final point, if Daniel Ricciardo did actually join the call today, good luck in the next season. I hope there's lots more Shoeys on the podium. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
I see some comments coming through, and we'll just close down. Please remember, next week we have the next Kite perspective, which is around smart council, digital customer experience, and that's going to be attended by Ken Prokopek, who is the director of CX Public Services from Oracle, and I think that's going to be a really insightful talk. So if you're around, please tune in and join the conversation.
Thank you for having us, and thanks for your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. No worries.
Bye.
Yes, thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah.